It's K-Squid. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and it's time for Talk of the Bay, our local public affairs program brought to you each and every weekday evening at 5 o'clock following Tom Hartman's show. Today we have a big show. We're going to go directly now to a clip from the press conference that Jimmy Panetta, a representative here in the 19th District of the Congressional District, held a press conference this afternoon. Two of our intrepid reporters, Nyanko, Nyasu, and Amy Chen Mills, were there. And here's what Jimmy Panetta had to say in response to the killings in Minnesota and the outrage over the way ICE has been behaving.
Let me be clear that the DHS, ICE, and CBP agents are not law enforcement. Instead, they are acting like a lawless, marauding mob posing as police. At the federal level, we are doing what we can to make sure that we prevent further deadly shootings of U.S. citizens and the violation of civil liberties by ICE and CBP agents. And at the local level, what you're seeing here, we're doing everything we can to prevent them and prepare for them from being in our communities. Let's be clear. I think obviously we're going to continue to need immigration enforcement, but the way they do it is the problem right now. The way they're doing it is the problem, in the reckless, ruthless manner that they're out there marauding around, not just going after undocumented, not actually just focusing on anybody and everybody who looks like they're undocumented. This is not the way to do it. And what happens is you end up then harassing not just non-citizens, but citizens as well, as we've seen in Minnesota, as we've seen throughout this country. And what's going on is that you're seeing these deadly incidents that are occurring, that are inevitable, when not only that you have agents acting like that, but you have this administration making these absolutely irresponsible conclusory statements, summing up what they think is happening, and they're trying to tell us what we actually saw and go against what we're actually seeing. And I think that's putting them into a corner right now because of what the people have done to be out there in the streets, peacefully protest and peacefully document exactly everything that these agents are doing. And I would encourage people to continue to do that in a nonviolent way, because right now, that's how we're getting transparency and accountability. But what we want to do legislatively is make sure, and as we heard this in the roundtable, just like our local law enforcement agencies do, you're not going to wear masks. You're going to properly identify. You're going to wear body cams. There's going to be independent investigations. You're not going to search homes without a judicial warrant when it comes to actually doing your job. You're going to be properly trained. We're going to increase the training, not to this reduced 47 days of training in homage to the 47th president, but actually have proper training so that you know how to engage, not just in any sort of detentions with undocumented, but how you not just escalate a situation, but how you de-escalate a situation. And most importantly, as I've always heard from law enforcement, use your common sense, use your moral obligation. That's why they hire, that's why people like that should be hired, to understand what it means to serve and protect.
That was Jimmy Panetta at a local press conference earlier today, and Amy Chen Mills was there. Amy, you heard Jimmy Panetta sounding a lot more certain about his position than we have in the past. What was your take on the tone of the group? It wasn't just Jimmy Panetta in this press conference, although he was the main attraction. There were other law enforcement there, correct?
Yeah, there was the sheriff of Santa Cruz County, Chris Clark. There was the sheriff of Monterey County, a woman named Tina Nieto. There was the DA for Santa Cruz County. I mean, there were like 10 or 15 people lined up who had been in this meeting with Panetta before they came out for the press conference. And I would say that, Panetta was very strident in his tone, very certain in his tone, and everyone else was too. And in some cases, like Sheriff Nieto from Monterey was actually quite emotional, talking about how sitting on her couch, in the living room of her home watching the news is bringing tears to her eyes every night. So it was actually kind of a very impactful press conference. I don't know if that's the right word, but very everyone was shaken and everyone seemed very determined to be in unity about how to respond. And actually, ICE has been here already, right? And there was just an arrest in Watsonville. We've heard reports of San Jose. Felipe Hernandez was there talking about the new SHIELD subcommittee, which is a subcommittee that was just formed, I think, on Tuesday to create a response, like a crack response to ICE agents coming into our community.
And that's on the supervisor level. I was curious if they said any more about how that would operate, because usually, the law enforcement locally is supposed to protect people, but they are faced with this untenable position, as they did in Minneapolis. Some off-duty police officers are getting picked up, and they think it's intentional to show who's boss. I don't know if they addressed that in the press conference or not.
Well, I mean, I think that police are now having to really think about, where their allegiances are and to whom. And it seems like in Minneapolis, they're mostly siding on the side of the community. But I did ask the question, what would happen if they came here, if ICE came here or Customs and Border Patrol came here and started violating our First Amendment rights like they have in Minneapolis and Fourth Amendment rights? And Chris Clark answered that question. Jimmy Panetta stepped aside to let the sheriff answer. And, he said, if anything is witnessed, we will document, we will investigate, and we will prosecute, is what Chris Clark was saying. So it seems like, it was a pretty impressive array of people gathered. Elaine Johnson was there from the NAACP, Erica Padilla-Chavez from the Second Harvest Food Bank, and Supervisor Felipe, as I said, Farrah Saba was there. I mean, a lot of people were there. And everyone seemed like they felt very united in their commitment to protecting the community.
It seems like a nice goal to be able to investigate, but as we've seen in Minneapolis, they were not allowed. Local officials were barred from the crime scene, and we still don't know the names of the people who killed Alex Preddy. So I don't know if they will be allowed to investigate. It sounds good. I'm hoping that they'll do everything possible. But we have seen how the reason they're wearing masks with no badges is they don't want accountability. And today we learned that Schumer and the rest of the Democrats have held firm, and more Republicans have joined them in demanding certain things, and some of those are no masks, as you heard earlier from Jimmy Panetta.
Yeah, I think that some of the critiques from our community about Panetta, and there was a question about his support for House Resolution 488 from a Santa Cruz local reporter, in which he signed on to, basically, it was called an anti-Semitism bill, but two of the points were to encourage local law enforcement to cooperate with federal agencies, and also to be grateful to ICE. He's clearly changed his tune, but some of the things that I just heard him say in that clip you played are concerning to me, because I feel like the lack of training, the people they're hiring, some of them from the Proud Boys we're hearing, this kind of groups of people, it's more a feature than a bug of what this administration wants this force to be like. So you hope that Panetta recognizes this, and we only were able to ask about 3 to 4 questions before he had to run off. And so these are the questions that I would ask if I could speak longer with Panetta, is how are you seeing how this administration is really, in my mind, like doing an ethnic cleansing of the country, and so does he think that extra training is going to help? Does he think that removing, one of the things he's calling for is the impeachment of Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem, which is actually a pretty big deal if you think about it. So that's pretty high level, and that's good, but I think people are concerned that maybe we're not seeing the kind of analysis of the federal administration that we need, where we're seeing, a real authoritarian takeover.
Right. It's really how you frame what's happening, whether it's just a few bad apples or the whole thing is rotten. And we are seeing a lot of rottenness coming out of the administration when they lied about how and why these people were killed. And now they're trying to walk it back, but I have heard that it's not really a walk back as much as a damaged PR control. So we will be watching. And Amy, thank you for taking the time today to go down there, and hope we hear more of the press conference when we get it on our website. So thanks again. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.